The room was filled with flowers, laughter, and endless promises of forever. Their wedding had been nothing short of magical, the kind of celebration most people only dream of. As the bride and groom smiled through endless photographs, everyone believed they were witnessing the beginning of a fairy tale. But little did anyone know, beneath the glimmering smiles and vows of devotion, there was a secret that would unravel everything they thought they knew about love, trust, and forever. Welcome to today's story, where we uncover how a single hidden truth, buried during a honeymoon, led not to everlasting happiness, but to heartbreak, betrayal, and ultimately, divorce. If you enjoy gripping real-life twists like this one, make sure to subscribe to our channel and join us daily for stories that reveal the raw truths behind the facades people wear. These are stories that not only entertain, but also leave you with a message about the importance of honesty, trust, and choices. Their honeymoon destination was breathtaking. A remote island with golden sands and turquoise waters. Everything seemed perfect. They dined under the stars, explored hidden lagoons, and laughed like children, rediscovering joy. Friends and family back home eagerly awaited the photos, convinced this couple had set the gold standard for romance. But perfection has a way of hiding imperfections, and as the days passed, small cracks began to appear. It started with hushed phone calls late at night. The groom would excuse himself, stepping out onto the balcony with his phone pressed tightly against his ear. The bride noticed, but said nothing at first, brushing it off as work-related. After all, she wanted to trust him. Isn't trust the foundation of marriage? But with every whispered conversation and every evasive answer, suspicion began to build like storm clouds over calm seas. On the fifth night, while he was asleep, her curiosity won over her patience. She reached for his phone, her hands trembling. And what she discovered in those messages was not just surprising, it was devastating. The cheerful new husband had been hiding a connection with someone else, someone who had been more than just a friend. The messages weren't innocent, they were intimate. They spoke of promises, of feelings, and of regrets for choices made. Her world shattered in an instant. The honeymoon she had imagined as the pinnacle of joy now became the setting for heartbreak. She sat in the dark, staring at the glowing screen, torn between disbelief and rage. Should she confront him immediately? Should she walk away quietly? Or should she give him a chance to explain? The questions circled endlessly, but one truth was undeniable. Her marriage was not what she thought it was. The next morning, her silence spoke louder than words. The smiles were gone, the laughter forced. He noticed, of course, but when she confronted him, he tried to downplay it, calling it a mistake, a misunderstanding, a lapse in judgment. Yet the words on the phone were undeniable proof. They were etched into her heart like a wound that would never fully heal. And as the honeymoon days dragged on, the island paradise no longer felt like a dream, but like a prison, trapping her with a man she could no longer trust. The confrontation on that sunlit morning was anything but calm. The bride's voice shook as she demanded answers, her hands gripping the phone that held the evidence of betrayal. He stumbled for excuses, claiming it was nothing, that it had been over long before the wedding, that he had chosen her, and she should focus on that. But his words felt hollow, like sand slipping through her fingers. The damage was done, and no explanation could erase the late-night whispers or the messages that spoke of love for someone else. They sat in silence for hours, the sound of waves crashing outside, mocking the storm raging between them. She thought of the vows he had made, words of loyalty, honesty, and devotion. Every promise now rang false in her memory. She wondered how many times he had smiled at her while hiding the truth. A question burned in her heart. Had he ever truly been hers? The honeymoon became unbearable. Meals together were tense, conversations short, smiles non-existent. The beautiful island that once felt like paradise turned into a cruel reminder of broken trust. Every romantic sunset felt like a lie, every walk on the beach a performance for strangers passing by. She couldn't escape the thought that her marriage had ended before it even began. When they returned home, the facade they put on for family and friends was exhausting. Everyone wanted to see pictures, hear about the adventures, and relive the magic. But behind closed doors, their reality was cold and fractured. Nights were filled with arguments, tears, and accusations. She couldn't bring herself to forgive, and he couldn't seem to let go of his excuses. The final blow came when she discovered that the so-called mistake had not been left behind on the island. The other person was still very much a presence in his life. Secret calls continued. Hidden messages resurfaced. Each discovery was like pouring salt into an open wound. Trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild, and with each lie uncovered, the distance between them grew wider. Friends noticed the change. The glow of newlyweds had faded into shadows of suspicion and resentment. Some urged her to fight for her marriage, reminding her that forgiveness was possible. Others told her to walk away, to save herself from more pain. The choice was hers, but it was a choice no bride ever imagines making so soon after saying, "I do." Eventually, she decided to consult a lawyer. Filing for divorce so soon after a wedding felt like admitting failure, but staying felt like surrendering to a life built on lies. The lawyer listened quietly, nodding as she recounted the honeymoon discovery and the months of betrayal that followed. He told her gently what she already knew. Sometimes, the bravest act of love is letting go. The divorce proceedings began quietly, but grew bitter as emotions flared. He tried to save face, portraying her as overreacting, claiming the relationship with the other woman had ended before their vows. But documents, messages, and timelines told a different story. The truth was undeniable. The courtroom became the new battleground. What had started as a private heartbreak was now a public affair, with lawyers, judges, and strangers listening to the intimate details of their short-lived marriage. She sat on one side, calm but firm, while he sat across from her, eyes darting nervously as the truth was laid bare. Her lawyer presented the evidence methodically: the text messages, the phone records, the timeline of lies. Each piece of proof was like a puzzle, fitting together, forming a picture of betrayal that could no longer be denied. The judge listened, occasionally raising an eyebrow, while the audience of curious spectators whispered among themselves. He tried to defend himself, claiming the messages were taken out of context, that the other woman was just a friend, that nothing inappropriate had happened during the marriage itself. But the words on the screen told another story. "I miss you, wish you were here, and I don't know if I made the right choice," were not the words of friendship. They were daggers, piercing the image of the faithful husband he pretended to be. The cross-examination grew intense. Her lawyer's questions were sharp, each one cornering him into contradictions. His temper flared, his voice raised, and for the first time, the mask he wore cracked in front of everyone. The calm, loving husband he claimed to be was nowhere to be seen. Instead, the jury and the judge saw a man desperate to cover his lies, a man who had gambled with love and lost. But it wasn't only about the texts or the betrayal anymore. The case had become about accountability, about showing that vows mean nothing without truth behind them, about proving that deception, no matter how carefully hidden, eventually finds its way into the light. She sat quietly as her lawyer spoke, but inside she felt a storm of emotions: anger, sadness, relief. It all mixed together. Yet beneath it all was a newfound strength. She no longer felt like a victim, sitting in that courtroom. She was a woman who had survived betrayal and was standing up for herself, refusing to let lies define her future. Then came the moment that changed the atmosphere completely. A video was introduced, footage from the honeymoon itself. Captured by a security camera, it showed him slipping away late at night, meeting someone in the shadows. The courtroom fell silent as the screen flickered with undeniable proof. Gasps filled the room. Even his lawyer's face dropped, knowing the case had taken a devastating turn. The judge leaned back, expression unreadable. But everyone knew the outcome had shifted. His lies were not just words anymore. They were actions caught on camera. The betrayal was no longer hidden behind excuses. It was displayed for everyone to see. She didn't smile, didn't gloat, didn't celebrate. She simply closed her eyes, letting the truth wash over her. For months, she had doubted herself, wondered if she was overreacting, questioned her own judgment, but now the evidence confirmed what her heart had known all along. He had broken their vows, and no excuse could ever fix that. The judge adjourned the session, leaving the final verdict for the next day. But as she walked out of that courtroom, she felt lighter. The burden of doubt had lifted. The fight was not yet over, but the truth had spoken louder than his lies. The final day of the trial arrived, and the courtroom was packed. Journalists filled the back rows, eager for the conclusion to a case that had captivated so many. Friends and strangers alike came to witness what had started as a fairy tale marriage and had now become a lesson in truth, betrayal, and consequence. She entered the courtroom with quiet dignity. No flashy clothes, no dramatic gestures, just calm resolve. He, on the other hand, looked worn down, his confidence drained, his eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. Everyone could sense it. The truth had already delivered its judgment. But now, the law would put it into words. The judge took his seat, shuffled his papers, and began. This court has carefully reviewed the evidence. His voice was steady, deliberate, carrying weight with every word. The text messages, the testimony, and most importantly, the video had painted a clear picture. Promises were broken, trust was destroyed, and attempts to mislead the court had only deepened the wound. The verdict was swift. The marriage was dissolved. She was granted full financial protection, her legal costs covered, and her dignity restored in the eyes of the law. As for him, the judge had harsh words. Marriage is not a game nor a performance. It is a vow of truth. To betray that vow is to betray yourself. Those words hung in the air like a warning for everyone listening. Gasps rippled through the room. Some looked at him with pity, others with judgment. But she didn't look at him at all. Her focus was on the door ahead, on the future waiting beyond that courtroom. As she walked outside, the cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, but she gave no speeches, no sound bites. She simply said, "The truth always wins." Those 4 words carried more weight than any headline could capture. He remained behind, head bowed, realizing too late that the lies he thought he could control had destroyed everything he valued. The court had spoken, society had witnessed, and his own conscience would haunt him far longer than any judgment written on paper. And that is the message this story leaves for all of us. Lies may seem convenient, betrayal may feel hidden, but the truth has a way of surfacing when you least expect it. Relationships are built not on grand gestures or promises whispered in the dark, but on honesty, the kind that stands unshaken when tested. If there is one thing to take from this case, it is that trust, once broken, can rarely be repaired. But standing firm in truth, even when it hurts, gives you strength that no one can take away. So as we close this story, remember, the strongest people are not those who never fall, but those who rise with integrity after being pushed down. Thank you for staying with us through this powerful journey. If you found this story meaningful, make sure to subscribe to our channel for daily videos like this one. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us keep bringing you stories that inspire, warn, and empower. Until next time, stay strong, stay truthful, and never forget, the truth